Again, it's a redskin.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back. In today's video we're going to learn how to build a simple password manager in Python. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up CMD or the terminal of your choice, and we're going to type pip install cryptography. Cryptography is an external Python library that we're going to use to actually encrypt and decrypt our password files, because the basic idea of a password manager is that you have a collection of passwords that you want to store in a password file or in a password database, and this database or this file should be encrypted. So you should have something like, if it's decrypted, you have something like an identifier, or you could say an account name, or maybe a URL. For example, Facebook account 1 password, like that. And then you have, if you think of this like a key value pair, you have this is the key, then you have the value, I don't know, my password 123, and you have a bunch of these key value pairs with different passwords for different accounts for different platforms. And essentially what you do is you log in with a master password or with a key, so something that decrypts the database, and then you just say, I want to have the password for this specific account. This is the password. And of course, you don't have this in a clear text file. You have something encrypted, so a database or encrypted key value pairs, whatever, and you have to decrypt them using a key or using a password. And this is what we're going to build today, and for that we need cryptography. We're going to use a class for this, so we're going to build a class for this. We're going to call it password manager, and it's going to have a couple of methods. For example, creating a key, loading a key, creating a password file, loading a password file, getting a password, or adding a password to your password file. And we're going to have all of this in one class, and the only import that we're going to need is actually from cryptography.fernet. I hope this is how it's pronounced. Import fernet, and this is a symmetric key encryption class or procedure or algorithm, you could say. So essentially we're going to use that to generate a key, and this key is going to be used for encrypting and decrypting the password files. So we're going to do it with a key here. It's a little bit simpler here in Python. And then we're going to just create the class password manager like that. And we're going to define a basic constructor first. And this constructor, we're just going to say the key is none. So by default, we don't have a key for encryption or decryption. We also don't have a password file specified, so this is also going to be none. And also, since we're going to use key value pairs here, we're going to have a password underscore dict for dictionary, and this is going to be an empty dictionary in the beginning. All right, so the first thing we want to have is we want to have a key in order to encrypt and decrypt whatever we want to open. So for that, we're going to first create a method that generates a key. So def create underscore key. By the way, if you wonder why my voice is a little bit different, I'm still cold. I still have, I'm still a little bit sick, so excuse that. And however, we're going to have this create key function, and this create key function is going to set this key attribute of the class, and it's going to set it to a fernet.generate key. So it's going to call the generate key method of fernet, and this is going to return to us a key. So we can actually go ahead and print the result of that to see what we get here actually. For that, of course, I need to create a password manager instance, and I need to say pm.createKey. And we need to specify a path, but actually we don't need to do that yet because we're not using that. So I'm going to pass none. And then you can see this is what we have here. This is just a key. I think base64 encoded, but I'm not sure about that. Essentially, you have the key, and this key can be used now for encryption and decryption. So we provide a path here because we want to be able to store that key into a file. So when we create the key, we also want to store it into a file so that we can load it later on. And for that, we're going to say with open, and we're going to open the path in writing bytes mode SF. And then we're going to say f.write self.key, like that. And this will create our key and store it into a file. So actually we can do the same thing again. pm equals password manager, and then pm dot create key, and we're going to say my key.key, for example. Now I run this, and then I have this key file here, and you can see that the key is now inside of that. All right, so that works. Now we only have to also have a function for loading, because once you create a key and create a new password file and you save your passwords, you want to be able to decrypt it again with the same key. So the existing key has to be loaded. You cannot create a new key every time. And because of that, we're going to say load key self path. And we're going to essentially say with open path reading bytes mode sf. Self.key is just going to be whatever is inside of f, so f.read. All right, so that works. By the way, we're not going to do all the validation, so we're not going to check for path being none or having an invalid value or something like that. I'm going to teach you how to do it, and if you want to go into the details of checking if valid values are provided by the user, you can do so, but since you are the user, just enter values that make sense here. We're not going to do all the validation stuff. So we have the keys now. We can load the keys. We can create the keys. Now let's do the same thing for the password files. We want to have password files that basically have the information of that password dictionary. So either we already have a password file and we want to load the content into the password dictionary, or we already have the password dictionary with the values and we want to write those into the password file. So first of all, we're going to create or to have a function for creating the password file. So def create password underscore file. And here we're going to also specify the path to the password file. And we're going to specify initial values, and we're going to set those to none in the beginning. What does that mean? Initial values basically means that I can pass here when I call this function outside of the class. I can just pass a dictionary already with my key value pairs. So if I already want to specify some passwords, and those are going to be written into the password file immediately. Otherwise, we're just going to do nothing. We're just going to create that file and know it's there, and then we can write into that file. So we're going to say self.password file equals path. So this is no longer none. It now has a value, and this is going to be important because we're going to have a function or a method called add password. And when we call that, we want to know where to write the changes to. And here we also have now the case if initial values is not none. So if we provided something, we're going to write those things into the file. So for key values in initial values dot items. So when you have a dictionary, the dot items thing gives you basically you can iterate using the dot items. The dot items method can be used to iterate over the tuples. So we have a list of tuples of the key value pairs. So key value are essentially the things here. So let's just call this key value. And essentially we can then say self dot, or actually this, we're going to pass this for now because this, I'm going to add a to-do here, add password function. This function will be used here. Otherwise, we would have to redundantly implement the functionality. So the method I talked about already, I told you about already, this adding passwords to the password file. This is something that we're going to use here instead of implementing it twice. But the main feature of this function is actually to just set the path to this attribute. Yeah, so now load password file is basically the opposite. So we already have a password file here, and we want to actually load it and to have the dictionary, the password dictionary, be the content of that file once it's decrypted. So here we're already going to do some decryption. We're going to say self.password file equals path, because this is also relevant for writing. If we want to add password to an existing file, we still need to know where it is. And then we're going to say with open the path in reading mode as f. We're going to say for each line in password file, or actually in f, sorry. For each line in that file, what we're going to do is we're going to decrypt it. So we're going to have, what we're going to do in this password manager is we're always going to encrypt the password. We're not going to encrypt the platform or the identifier. you can do that if you want to, but in my case, how I did it here in the prepared code is I basically have a key value pair of site and password, and the password is encrypted, whereas site is just plain text, so it doesn't really matter. Again, you can choose to do that differently, but because of that, what I have to do now is I have to say site, or what we have to do now here is site encrypted is going to be the line being split on some thing that you want to use for separation. I use a comma, a colon. You can use whatever you want. Essentially, you have the key value pair separated by a character, in my case, a colon. And then what we do is we just say self.password dictionary, which is, again, what we have up here. We're going to add to the site, we're going to load for the respective site the password, but not the encrypted password that is stored in the text file. We're going to decrypt it by saying fernet dot, or actually fernet, and then we pass the key. If you don't have the key loaded already or created, you're not going to be able to do that, but you have the key already. So you first load the key or create the key, and then you say fernet self key. This is now the object, and then dot decrypt, and we're going to basically take encrypted here, and we have to encode it in order to be able to decrypt it, and we have to decode it afterwards to have a string. So this is what we do. Again, we load the password file. For each line we separate at the colon, and then we just read line by line. We decrypt the right part after the colon basically to decrypt the password, and then we load the key value pairs decrypted into the password dictionary. So that's that, and now we're going to implement the actual adding of the password, which is the encryption part. So we're going to say add password, and the parameter here is going to be the identifier, so basically the site and the password itself. So this is what we use to add a password. And essentially all we need to do here locally is we need to say in the dictionary that the password for the site is the password. Nothing fancy here. And then if the password, if the self.password file is not none, so if we have specified it by saying create password file or by saying load password file, if it's not none, what we're going to do is we're going to open it and write into it. So with open the self.password file in writing mode SF, or actually, my mistake, we need to turn this into an appending mode because we don't want to write. Writing and appending are different because when you write, you overwrite the file. So if I open a file that has 5 lines in it already and I open it in writing mode, I'm going to overwrite it, whereas if I open it in appending mode, I add lines to the file. And I'm going to also add a plus here because I think this means appending and reading, and I'm not sure if we don't need this here. So essentially we open that in appending mode, and then we say the encrypted password is essentially just fernet self key that we're going to use for the encryption has to be the same that we use for the decryption. So if you have multiple keys, what you encrypt with a certain key has to be decrypted with the same key. And essentially we're going to use that object here to say encrypt, and we encrypt the actual password provided, which we have to encode for it to work. That is now the encrypted password, and this is essentially what we then write into the file. So f.write, and we want to have the site, so the identifier plus the separator. And of course, what you add here as a separator is what you want to add here as a separator, or use here as a separator. And here we have the encrypted password, decoded, of course, and all of this by a line break, so that we have one password for each line. That is actually it. The only thing that we now need to do is we need to use that method here. So just self.addPassword, and we want to have key value essentially, right? So that should work. And the last method that we have here is the get_password method, which essentially gives us the password once we pass an identifier or a site. And here we just say return self.password dictionary site. And of course for that, the password file and the key have to be loaded. that's it. What's the problem here? Okay, duplicate code fragment because I have prepared this code already. But besides that, this seems to work. Now, the only thing left to do is to use all that. So this is already the password manager. We're done with the implementation. But we need to create a menu and a main function, you could say. So we're going to say def main, and this is going to be the actual code that uses this class. And here we're going to have a sample dictionary to start with. So we're going to have, I don't know, email is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, we want to have that in quotation marks. Then we can say Facebook, my FB password. Then we're going to say, I don't know, YouTube, hello world, 1, 2, 3. And then maybe something. And then the password is my favorite password underscore 1, 2, 3 or something. So we have some passwords to start with. Those are the passwords that we're going to add as initial values. And then we're going to create a password manager object here. We're going to construct it. And then we're going to build a very simple menu like we have done in many videos before. So we're going to do a multi-line string here. What do you want to do? Question mark. And then we have possibility 1, create a new key. Possibility 2, load an existing key. Possibility 3, create new password file. Possibility 4, load existing password file. Possibility 5, add a new password. Possibility 6, get a password. And then Q is going to be for quitting. So those are the options. And now we build a simple menu by saying done equals false. And then essentially while not done. And here we have this if-else structure. If you're using Python 10, 3.10 actually, you can use match case here. But since I'm using Python 3.9, I'm going to use ordinary if statements. We're going to say choice equals input. Enter your choice. And then if choice equals 1, then we're going to do, we're going to say the path is first of all the input. So this was creating a new key. So enter a path. You can also make the messages more sophisticated, more concrete. I'm just going to say enter path here for the sake of speed. Then pm.createKey path. So this is going to be the key that we use now for encryption and decryption. So what we encrypt with this key can only be decrypted with this key, and this is important, so you have to keep it secret. Then if choice equals, or actually elif choice equals 2. In this case, we have load an existing key, so we're going to also have this path prompt here, but we're going to say pm.load key and also the path. So essentially in this case, the same thing happens. I mean, the same prompt happens, but a different function is being executed. Then elif choice equals 3. In this case, we have create a new password file. Here also we're going to have a path. And we're going to say pm create password file. There you go. And essentially here we can say, first of all, let me just see how I handled here the new initial value passwords. So enter the desired path. Okay, so basically I just did it here for demonstration purposes. Okay, we're going to do it like that. So essentially we're going to pass the path here as well. And this is not going to be a choice by the user, but I'm going to, when I create a new file, just enter these passwords here directly. Otherwise, you can also prompt the user again with another input asking, is there a password file that you want me to use already? Or something, a CSV file or a key value or a JSON file or something like that. We're just going to do it anyways. Then choice equals 4 basically means that we want to load a password file. Guess what? We're going to ask for the path again. Typo here. And this basically means pm.load password file path. Then elif choice equals 5. Now I think here we don't need a path actually. We need to have a site, which is going to be input enter the site, and then password equals input, enter the password, and then pm dot add password site password. And then last but not least, we have getting the password. So if the choice is 6, we say that what site do we want the password for? So what site do you want? Then we have print password for, and then site is, and here we basically say pm dot get password based on the site that was provided. All right, and then we have also the quit. So if the choice is Q, basically we're just gonna say done equals true. Maybe we print something like bye. And in all other cases, this is invalid choice. And we're gonna run this again. So after all these actions, we're going to repeat all this again, except for Q, this is going to quit the loop. And the last thing we now need to do here is we just need to run this. So you can just type main, or you can do it a little bit more professionally by typing if underscore underscore main underscore underscore, or actually, sorry, if underscore underscore name underscore underscore equals underscore underscore main underscore underscore, then main, like that. By the way, if you don't know what that is, I have a video on it. You can check it out. But this should be it, and we should now be able to use our password manager. So let's try. Going to run this. Let's start by creating a new key. I'm going to call this test key.key. Then I'm going to create a new password file. I'm going to enter the path mypasswords.pass or something. And then I want to get a password. So for example, email. Did I have email up here? Yeah, I had email, so this should work. Or it doesn't. Oh, does work. Okay. Password for email is 1234567. And now I can quit and I can run this again. You should see here that I have the test key here, and I have the password file, so you can see email, Facebook, YouTube, something. Again, you can also encrypt those. And on the right side, you can see the encrypted passwords. I hope you can see them. And if I'm not blocking this, okay, you at least see most of them. Yeah, so that works. And now we're going to rerun this again. And of course, we need to load the existing key. So we're going to say test key.key. And we're going to load the password file. And this was mypasswords.pass. And in this case, if I now type 6 and I say, okay, give me Facebook, this works as well. Now I can add a password. This was option 5, I think. And I'm going to say neural9 password, and this is going to be neural9 pass. And essentially, of course, I can get it now if I just type neural9. As you can see, I'm going to quit this again. I'm going to run it one more time here. Load the key again. Test key.key. Load the file again. mypasswords.pass. And then get a password neural9. You can see it works. Now, let me show you what happens if you just take another key. So, for example, if I say, okay, load an existing key, and I'm going to use the one from before, so mykey.key, and then I'm going to load the password file that was encrypted with a different key, so I'm going to use mypasswords.pass. You can see that the whole thing fails because it has an invalid token. And of course, you can catch that exception and throw an error message, but this is how you build a simple password manager in Python. So that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed and hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting a like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you much for watching. See you in the next video, and bye.